Hey everybody. Today I want to talk to you just very briefly. About Masonic education and namely how that applies to what I'm doing here on this channel. Because I think a lot of the times when we talk about Masonic education, I know for a fact for a lot of lodges and for a lot of brothers, it begins and ends at their memory work. So if you learn the catechism or the memory work, the questions and answers, that's your Masonic education. And sometimes that extends further. You might go further with your Masonic education by learning the degrees or the lectures, or taking additional degrees and learning things through that, like the York Rite degrees and Commandery or the Scottish Rite, and going from there. But that's not really all there is to Masonic education. And in fact, I think we're really we're harming ourselves in the long run by having such a focused and narrow definition of that. There are several schools that are discussed in the Fellowcraft lecture that I'm not going to go into here, but they mention that if you study these things, they'll make you they'll help you on your path to becoming a Master Mason, and just better you as a individual. And that's a start, I think. There's quite a lot just in the few things that are mentioned, the liberal arts that are discussed in the Fellowcraft degree, that would you could take a lifetime just studying these things. And those aren't strictly Masonic, but rarely are those included in Masonic education. Rarely are they discussed or anything like that. And so that's a start. But what about like what I'm doing? How does that apply? And the way I look at it is like this. One of the first things we learn as Masons is that we our goal ultimately is to improve ourselves. And we can apply that through the liberal arts or just anything really that betters us as people. And that's also highly underrated. We don't really discuss a lot of these things. Masonic education in lodge is usually limited to the history or the interpretation of symbolism, and it's not much further than that. But it's so much more. I mean, anything that improves you is really can be considered Masonic education. I mean, any kind of education really is Masonic education, because that's improving you. So what I do is I take things I've learned and I turn it into Masonic education by applying that to how we can use it as Masons, or how it can apply to a lodge, or even Grand Lodge, things like that. And I think that's really what Masonic education is: taking something you learn elsewhere and looking at it through a different paradigm, looking at it through a Masonic filter, and saying, well, how does this translate to me as a Mason or the lodge, and so forth. So am I offering education? Yes. I mean, anybody can benefit from the things I've written about, or even my last video, the Golden Circle. Anybody can benefit from that, really. But if you take the Golden Circle, for example, my last video, that's beneficial to anybody. The video that I linked, the TED Talk that I linked, that's a knowing Masonic. I mean, unless you apply that Masonic filter to it, then all of a sudden it is Masonic education. How can this apply to me? How can this apply to the programs we implement in the lodge? How can this apply to the lodge itself, or even, as I said, the Grand Lodge? So yeah, that's Masonic education. So throughout these videos I make, I'll talk about a lot of things, and you might think they're unrelated to really anything Masonic, but no, because if you can take literally anything and apply that filter and say, here's this, and this is how this applies to Freemasonry. And I've done that several times in the blog. And like the Golden Circle I'm doing here, the Masonic culture post that I'm working on is this being applied also. I'm rereading a book on skull culture. And the thing is, there's lots of parallels between school culture and lodge culture. They're both organizations. This is talking about one organization, and there's certain aspects that when you apply through that filter, you can translate over here to lodges and Grand Lodges and anything like that. And so this applies to all kinds of things. So don't look at a video and say, well, that's golden circle, that really has nothing to do with Freemasonry. When really, yeah, I mean, it can if you apply it properly. And I think that's really the focus of Masonic education. I mean, the things they talk about in the Fellowcraft lecture obviously aren't strictly Masonic. You know, geometry is not Masonic, but if you apply it through that filter and how the lessons can apply to you as a Mason, sure, it's Masonic. All of a sudden, it's Masonic education. So there's all kinds of applications. Anyway, I promised a short video, and it's running long, so I won't take a whole lot of your time. So thanks for watching, as always. I'm not going to post things every day. I'm just feeling really rambly this week. So thanks again, as always, for your view, and I will see you in the next video.